the same time that I'm shooting.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But for the cardboard, like they'll get you a sample.
Okay, no, still though, that's kind of great.
Yes.
I love that.
They can do wrong.
They sure can. That's why I wanted to get in there and make some changes. But but instead they elected a bunch of cops. So
Yeah. When they were trying to get rid of them.
yeah.
Where did that go?
It's kind of been like a stalemate at this point because the people who are currently on the board have to vote to like agree to close it. And at the time, typically that only occurs like but it was a season and so yes, three of them turned out to be independent, so three of them were with the Webster. But it's officially, so yeah.
So until the next election.
Probably, yeah. I think we'll probably want to keep like election and go that way. Yeah.
Yeah. One rep is doing it for reviews being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really know
Okay.
how to read it.
Yeah.
But that's what this kind of big ones. Yeah, and then not exactly like friends of friends, but like friendly. Okay, all three of them. I know Sumner and like I really
Test. Test.
Come on down.
Yeah, they want to go on the balcony. They have to ask that lady outside. But welcome, everybody. October 15th, 2024. Thank you very much for coming out to the Talonbooks fall launch. Really appreciate it. And where are those cameras? I want to welcome to anybody who is joining us on the live stream. I know there's a few people out there, so thank you for that. A couple of quick thank yous. Thank you, of course, to all the Talon staff, but I think on this particular occasion, a shout out to Les Smith, who's at the bar, our designer. Yeah. You know, not only did Les do the splendid covers, but the inside of some of these books is really tricky. I mean, really, really tricky. The kind of thing where the designer goes down the rabbit hole for about 8 weeks and doesn't come back. Yeah, that kind of tricky. So thank you very much to Les. And also our production manager, Darren, who coincidentally enough is also out at the bar tending it. But, you know, things are really busy at printers in August and September, like really, really busy, particularly the printer that we use for a lot of these books, who happens to have the best pricing in Canada at this moment, so you can imagine how busy they are. Anyway, Darren squeezed all the books out of them in time to be here. So I'm vastly appreciative of it, including conversations with the Kagwan River, which arrived on Tuesday, having left on Friday from Toronto. So yeah, anyway, thank you, Darren. And Rod Clark from the Paper Hound is out there selling. So Paper Hound has sold for us for many years. And of course, thank you to Pyatt Hall, who I was trying to count up how many times we've been here now, and somewhere between 15 and 18. So launches we've done in Pyatt Hall. A lot, and almost all of them can be found on YouTube if you want to go back, see some sensational readings from the past. And now on a slightly, well, a much more somber note, I'd like to honor Roy Meekie, who passed on Saturday. And Roy Meekie, of course, was a huge part of the writing ecosystem here and across Canada and all over North America and Japanese reconciliation. But also, very importantly, he was just a big part of the Talon program with many, many books published there, working with Roy Kiyuka, and the list goes on and on. So think a lot about Roy, and we just worked a lot with Roy's brother Art over the last year, and we did Flow a few years back. So yeah, Roy. And then I heard, it's either yesterday or the day before, that Stan Persky from Berlin also passed. So I want to honor Stan, who was another big part of the writing ecosystem here. So I'll just take a brief moment of silence. So to Roy and Stan. And then I know you'll be happy to hear that I am not going to stand here all night, having given up my hosting duties somewhere around launch number 2. So many a launch back. And so I'm pleased tonight that our MC will be Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's the author of Coast Mountain Foot, Fortified Castles, Fig Share, 15 chapbooks. He's been a big part of the literary communities in Calgary, Vancouver, and Toronto. He earned his doctorate at Simon Fraser. He just completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Toronto Scarborough. He's now the writer-in-residence at the University of Alberta, working with Jordan Abel. And I'm also very pleased to say that he is an editor at Talonbooks. So without further ado, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Kevin's a bit taller than me. Hi. Thanks for coming. I appreciate the fact you're all here because you could be literally doing anything else than spending an evening watching a bunch of poets read. So thank you. I appreciate you. I want to start with land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that this reading is taking place on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. It's wild to me to think that when I came here from Calgary to start my PhD 13 years ago, I had never heard anyone do a land acknowledgement, and then I moved here and it was happening all the time, so it kind of forced me in this position where I had to think about the territory I was occupying. Talonbooks, fall 2024. We've got these 5 extremely buck wild books. I'm in the unique situation. Well, maybe not unique because Katrina also worked on all these books, and so did Kevin and Les and Darren and Aaron and Vicky. But I'm in the unique position is that this is where I came into Talon. I started with Talon as an editor in January, part-time, and I kind of got thrown into the fire a bit. All these books are extremely strange and weird and exciting and bracing. I would encourage you on our break and afterwards, if you haven't already, to go to the book table for Paperhound and take a look at them. I think there's elements of them you won't quite get from the readings until you go and pick up the books. We have readings tonight from 5 excellent writers. We've got Sophie Ann Edwards, who will be reading from Conversations with the Kagawong River. We've got A. Jamali Rad, who will be reading from No Signal, No Noise. Sorry, I'm looking through my notes to remember the order. We've got Juana Avasilikoi, who will be reading from Chamber Sonic. We've got Steve Collis, who will be reading from The Middle. And we've got Mercedes Ng, who will be reading from Cop City Swagger. And that's the order they'll be reading in. We'll have the first 3 people who will read for about 10 to 12 minutes. then we'll have a break. We'll go enjoy ourselves. We'll have a drink. We'll eat a bun. We'll buy some books. And then we'll come back in a semi-timely manner. When Kevin turns the lights on and off again, that's your cue. And then we'll hear the last two readers. Does that sound good? Does that work for everyone? Okay. So my little intros for everybody. The first half is I'm just going to read the bio off the website. That's not very exciting. Well, semi-exciting. And then I've written little, because I was able to like work on all these books in some way, so I've written little intros for each book. Some of the books I had more to say about than others, if only because I spent more time with them. But I do have something for everybody. So let's start. So Sophie Ann Edwards lives on Nido Minising. Did I pronounce that right? Almost? Okay, I'll take that. I'll take my wins when I can get them. My almost wins when I can get them. Or Manitoulin Island in northeastern Ontario with her dog Bee and a roster of other woofers. There's like 2 W's in there, who help in her garden. Her writing has been generously supported by the Canada Council for the Arts and the Ontario Arts Council and published by numerous journals and micropresses across Canada. Sophie holds an MA in Interdisciplinary Studies, a Shirk-funded PhD, ABD. That's what it says on the website. All but dissertation. In Geography from Queen's and a certificate in Creative Writing from Humber College. Conversations with the Kagawang River is the record of a poetic practice that seeks a conversation with the Kagawang River on Nido Minising, or Manitoulin Island. Geography has a fraught history, Sophie notes, insisting that she wants to riffle dominant relations to the river. Sophie flips through the river's pages and offers the river a chance to flip through hers. The book takes a variegated approach, investigating local history and story, Torking Treaty, working between English and Anishinaabemowin. At the core of Sophie's project is a series of attempts to poetically collaborate with the non-human relations of the Kagawang, offering poetry exercises to the ecosystem for it to respond or not, to translate, to pick up, to ignore, to slough off, to flow, to erode, and to melt, to dwell in the impasse proposed by the materiality of the non-human world. In all her experiments, dialogues, and rapprochements, Sophie works with and against the incommensurabilities of trying to understand a place and a set of relations that definitely don't communicate in English. Conversations with the Kagawang River is a record of her trying to find the places where communication is possible and where it might actually be impossible. Please welcome Sophie Ann Edwards.
Yeah, instead of me trying to keep turning my phone on, that'd be super. Thank you, Ryan. That was beautiful. I don't know that I didn't need to say anything. I can just go. No, I'm kidding. I just want to really thank Talonbooks for taking me on. This is my first book, and it's a total thrill. I'm very proud, and it's crazy to feel this in my hands, because when I started this project, I didn't know I was writing a book. I just started spending time on the river, and it took me places where I wasn't expecting. So it's amazing to do this. So as Ryan said, this book is a record of, it documents my experience over a number of years on the river, and the Kagawang River, Gagagawang Zibi on Nido Nising, northeastern Ontario, the Anishinaabeg territory, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi peoples. And so it's a difficult book to read from. I mean, there's lots of text-based stuff, but it's very dynamic, because the river is a dynamic place. And I was installing, as Ryan said, I was installing letters and poems, inviting the river to collaborate. I was taking seriously this knowledge that the river is animate. It's alive. And so therefore I wanted to understand how could I learn to listen and learn the languages of the river, and how could I invite collaboration for it to speak
back with me. And I kind of, at the end, found a middle space between the ecosystem language and myself. So there are these documentation, a lot of these photographs, which I guess you could call visual poetry, all throughout the book, as well as it was important that I include the history of the river, which means looking at the colonial history and how that has shaped the river and our relations to it, particularly, well, everybody's. It definitely changed Indigenous relations to the river, and it informs how settler peoples relate to ecosystems. And so I have treaty history and I have erasure poems, and there's all these layered things going on. So I think tonight what I want to do is read some of the, they're more kind of reflective, narrative, personal reflections as I'm going through the process. And then you'll just have to get the book and check out all the other stuff. There are also, there's Anishinaabe terms, river terms throughout the book, which I include with support and encouragement from language speakers and elders on the island. So yeah, I will start. Uncanny. The water of my body greets the water of the river. I open my mouth and expel the last of the air in my lungs, language flowing out of my mouth, the only language that is sensible, that of my air, that of the water of my body, that of air passing through my lungs and across my tongue. I hear my heartbeat and feel the pulse of the river. The shifting river is pleasing, a release from definition, from the idea of self. Translation is a space of transition, like mist, like the riparian, water becoming vapor, land becoming river. Momentarily, I understand, but the need for breath follows me below the surface. Even submerged, I know I am other, an uncanny body with an uncanny tongue. The river accepts my strangeness, filters it, swallows it, and will swallow me completely. I would like to become uncanny in the magical sense of the word, be able to understand the language of the river, shift from the canniness of colonial heritage, from being something hard to explain. Translation is the space I can inhabit, borrow, where I can breathe between two worlds, air and water, English and ecosystem. Submersion. Geography has a fraught history. I want to riffle dominant relations to the river. Wading into the river requires submersion within her history. The body and the eyes are not entirely capable of perceiving long-term change, the erasures and hidden stories, the violence of maps, the weight of heavy metals. I must also converse with historical plaques, archival materials, and garbage cans. The process of writing moves between the river and the page, the visual and the word, the boundaries fluid. I work across and through disciplines, struggling with disciplinary boundaries and what constitutes meaning-making. Writing, too, has its own claims. How might the river write, edit, redact, and redirect writing, especially about herself? February 13, 305 steps in snow at hip height, graphite suspended over paper in a box strapped to my body. Shpagnaga, be deep snow. My body moves through the river, returned as snow. I move through the trees. My body writes its tracks, its lines on the ground, through the air. The body is motion. Language is motion. I want to shift from the stasis of the written text to write in the way that the river's ecosystem is always in process, the way that Anishinaabe is so verb-based, less noun-oriented than English, a mobile language. I hang a box from my shoulders over which graphite is suspended, moving freely as my body moves. My daughter Emily is with me. We laugh as we struggle through the hip-high snow, the box recording my motion onto paper. This is my first experiment along the Kagwang. March 5th, Kinonan Wawashkawan, conversation with deer. The small fragments of cedar buds dropped by squirrels and birds onto the snow prompt me to drop an alphabet of cardboard letters from a cedar tree growing angled alongside the river. Over the winter, deer walk through the letters on their regular route to the water. The letters are covered by hoofprints and snow, then uncovered, sinking into the melt as the weather warms, becoming submerged as the freshet turns the cedar grove into river. It is a constantly shifting reveal of letters. I climb the cedar regularly to document the process from above. Bridal Veiled Falls. We splash, wade, sell and beer-handed, lift faces to spray, enraptured, giddy, sun-reddened, posts multiply. I am double visioned. See the falls, see falling. We are caught up, but not in God. Caught, rupture, not rapture. Veiled, sight, blindness. The sun, limestone, solid under fingers. The rushing water, the rock, trees, rooted to the ravine. How is anything other possible? Married to ghosts, we cling to old vows. Constant growth, consummated without synaptical transference. Yellow dogtooth violet, blue crystalline breath in December dusk, bejeweled caddisfly, unfurling fern, pungent leek. What production worth a gently speaking jack in the pulpit? It continues, we continue, the hand becoming visible. Can we be graceful, midwife the river, while accepting our own possibly necessary fall? What word worth the weight of paper? February 22nd, otter typography, Ngig, river otter. I enjoy following the otter runs all along the west side of the river, the quieter side, people-wise. I place wooden letters at the entrance exit of one of the burrow holes and a piece of my hair as introduction. I hope for some otter typography. I wonder, however, is this a bit invasive? If the smell of my hands, my feet, my hair, and of course the letters will keep the otter away from this hole anyway. I return the next day and surprise the otter coming up the bank. I return twice more. A couple of letters have moved. It could be from the wind, not the otter, as there are almost no tracks. I decide to stay away for a few days to see if the otter will return to the hole. I return and replace the letters along the path after the recent snowfall. A week later, they are heavily tracked by otters and deer. Some letters have moved. September 8. I increasingly feel the river watching me. Sometimes I feel she knows when I'm here. Sometimes I feel we listen together. I greet her each time I come. I run my hands in the water, wipe the water over my face and neck. I pull a strand of my hair and send it down the river. When the birds hear me, they are quiet until I am quiet. Then they return to their foraging and twittering and flittering tree to tree. I continue to walk slowly along the edge of the river on the east side, where it is bordered by small bushes, poplars and cedars. Grass is trampled in spots by deer. Squarish limestone boulders are scattered throughout the shallow river. I walk across their slippery surfaces to the other side. I don't know if it's my imagination, but there's a kind of hum, a color I can hear when I'm near the river. A mossy green colors the breath moving in and out of my lungs. I've been tying my camera and video recorder to the branches. The camera gently spins and records. I float and follow the camera down the river. I take it underwater. I submerge myself. I record this exchange. Nkwewa, meet a snake on a body of water. Between takes, I sit shivering in the water. A water snake shoots away from the heat of my lap. We surprise each other. October, 2 years later. I return to the river as I've done most weeks for years, this time to slowly walk to and through all the places where I'd left alphabets. The longest lasting had been the tract letters and those woven into the cattails. The woven letters were protected from the elements, able to dry after each rain, and were hard to see, camouflaged as they were, wefted into the warp of the rushes. But that entire stand is gone when I paddled the upper over the summer. The tract letters lasted longer because I'd walked over them repeatedly, embedding them into the snow and into the ice, and then into the grass, but these are gone now too, decomposed, removed. There's no formal ending to this process along the river, only what I arbitrarily choose as a starting point and an ending. The residue of poems might still be circulating in the river, in the clouds, pieces of decomposing letters forming part of the decaying leaf litter below the trees. The echoes might still be echoing. And I am still listening, still learning, still opening to the lines of the river, her sounds. I still do not speak river or otter, yet my body hears differently now. The listening body opens to language. All the letters are gone now, decomposed, removed, or circulating. I can find no other traces of the poems, the letters, my tracks. This is as it should be. All that is left are the spaces where language finds itself. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. That was great. So all the images that were being projected up here, they're not just there for like to make it look pretty. They're actually like pieces in the book. So if you were also into those, that's a good reason to, purchase the book. That's part of my job, I think, is to be the hype person. So our next reader is A. Jamali Rad, and I may have gone overboard with this one because No Signal, No Noise is, of these 5, it's the book I probably spent the most time with, and I was working on it before I started at Talon, so I've thought about it the longest, so I had a lot to say. I did hold myself back, though. A. Jamali Rad is a text-forward artist born in Iran and currently based on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. They've previously published 2 full-length books of poetry, both from Talon, For Love and Autonomy in 2016 and Still in 2021. Their most recent work before No Signal, No Noise is the chapbook What I Want, published by Model Press in 2022. Jamali Rad also co-founded the journal About a Bicycle and the small poetry publisher House Press. A. Jamali Rad's No Signal, No Noise is a strange book that centers on a strange book. It circles an unnamed protagonist who may or may not be named Zero. This protagonist finds a manuscript and reflects on some aspect of it, only to find it again and again and again, a loose sheaf of papers that they pleasurably think through and pull together while also trying to pull themselves together. In the way you might draw a circle around nothing in order to make it into something, or to put that another way, in the way you might write out the number 0, which is a representation of a nothing that's been turned into something, our protagonist is constantly circling themselves, constantly trying to maintain a contradictory existence where they're both nothing and something simultaneously. Dear reader, this protagonist and their manuscript circle one another, forming this book, No Signal, No Noise, that is at once a book of poetry, an experimental novel, and a book of philosophy. We're asked to think, sorry, I could see it in my eye line sinking. It's at once a book of poetry, an experimental novel, and a book of philosophy. We're asked to think about 0, the number and the concept, its philosophical parameters, and its long global history. 0 is a lot of things, a number that's contradictorily nothing and something, a graphic marker where a boundary is drawn around a space, delimiting an inside and outside. Moving from 0 to A, when I first encountered this book in manuscript, emailed to me by its author, I was struck by its variance, its vacillations, as it wavered like the book's protagonist, sliding between fiction, philosophy, history, and poetry. I encourage you to waver with it. Please welcome A. Jamali Rad.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I was really excited when Ryan started working at Talon because then I could work even more with him. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone at Talon and thank Sophie for that wonderful reading. I'm just gonna dig right in because it's pretty dense, but yeah, we'll get a taste of it. Language is a system of sounds. Language is a system of sounds that can be represented by a system of writing. A system of writing must have a purpose or some sort of meaning to it and have a set of symbols, which can be both written and read. Language is a system of communication used by humans. Language is a complex system of communication used by humans to convey thoughts, ideas, and emotions. It involves structured combinations of sounds, symbols, or gestures with shared meaning. It encompasses spoken and written forms evolving through cultural and social interactions. Language is a complex system, a formal representation of the world. It creates a logical structure for understanding one's surroundings. Language is a systematic structure derived from material forms of relation. Material relations build forms upon forms of words, symbols, and numbers that shape material relations. Language is a system of communication formed by socioeconomic relations within a given community. Language is a social practice and is deeply embedded in everyday activities and forms of life. Language exists only in relation. Language exists only in relation and is a product of historical material conditions emerging from the productive forces and class struggles prevalent within a given society. The ruling class, through their control over the means of production, shape language's form and content. This linguistic hegemony obscures the exploitation of the working class. Language serves as a tool of ideological control, disguising the exploitative nature of the prevailing economic system. The ruling elite manipulates language, molding it to propagate their values and norms. Language is a construct of the ruling class. It is an instrument of ideological hegemony. It serves as a means of perpetuating the dominant ideas of the ruling elite, preserving existing power structures by asserting language as a static reflection of objective reality. Language is imposed upon the proletariat by the bourgeoisie who, in controlling the means of linguistic production, shape consciousness and limit revolutionary potential. Language, as controlled by the ruling class, disguises class conflicts and perpetuates false consciousness. The ruling class constantly alters language to meet their needs while insisting on its fidelity to objective truth. Language, as controlled and managed by the ruling class, is structured by writing. Language is structured by writing, and writing provides a framework that can mimic, represent, reflect, or determine the ideological underpinnings for a given society. Language provides a structure, is a medium for propagating ideology. Writing, as a materialized form of structure, serves as a means to represent, communicate, and manipulate numerical information. The writing of numbers is essential for record keeping. The writing of numbers or mathematical notation employs symbols and numerals to express abstract ideas, enabling the exploration of mathematical truths and the development of scientific theories. The writing of numbers allows for a further abstraction in representing reality, an abstraction that does not rely on relational communication and can thus be used to supplement ideology as well as alter material reality. The writing of numbers presumes a direct line to material reality, devoid of pesky relationality, and is thus used to ensure accuracy, traceability, and accountability. The writing of numbers is used as a means to denote rationality, logos, or objective truth. However, numbers can only be understood with the help of language, that pesky relationality. The writing of numbers combined with ideologically bent language allows the ruling class to shape understanding and guide future knowledge production. In this way, the ruling class skews the material world, furthering their ideology. If language cannot be changed, neither can the conditions of the working class. How to draw a circle. The following is an account of how it all started. Everything changed when I found the book. It was a brisk morning, either late autumn or early spring. I can't remember. What I do remember is walking about through the uninhabited depths of narrow alleyways and on flat wastelands of crumbling sidewalks. A little disoriented or disengaged, I was still determining for what purpose I was out and about. A day is like an unblooming flower upon which one may stumble, like I assume I did that day, upon a semi-ancient manuscript, a notebook of sorts, written by who can only be called an obsessive, who, with little knowledge of mathematics, seems enthralled by the concept of zero. I found myself immediately taken in by the mysteries of this number. At first glance, the text appeared to be some sort of linguistic exercise, wherein the semi-ancient, yet purely modern monomaniac continuously pursues sources that they believe will lead them to the origin story of this admittedly complex entity. I held the disordered pages of text between my hands, unable to know what to make of such a mess. Flipping through the pages, I landed on a random one and began to read. Names for zero. Shunya, Sanskrit, is a word for void, emptiness. Shunyata is a word for vacuity, nothingness. From Shunya, we go to Shifr, then Seph, then Cipher, then Zephyrim, then Cephos, Zaviro, Zoiro, and finally zero. I take my time as it comes, and as these things often go, forget to take note of my days. Suppose I purchased this crudely made book and took it home, and in this way happened to awaken one morning with it having been placed upon my nightstand. Suppose I then pick up the book from its resting spot and begin to read the pages within, one page at a time, so as not to impress upon my mind too much of its strangely formed ideology too quickly. Suppose I do so and share that which I read with you, dear reader, so that you too may have access to these strange and muddled thoughts. In a moment of history, a symbol appeared for zero. I kept track of all the numbers, bushels of wheat, seeds, wool, of anything really. A symbol came and went and came back again. What happens when the body needs an absence to assert its own existence? What happens when self is established in relation to an other that is brought into being solely for the purpose of being in opposition? A circle is drawn by a hand. One either exists inside or does not. But what happens if one does neither? In my own way, I consider how I too can perhaps get a little bit tangled in the thought of a singular subject. As the questions posed by the manuscript followed me through the day, I pondered the boundaries between self and other, being inside or outside of said boundary, and whether the possibility may exist to be at once both or neither, inside and or outside. I'm just going to skip right the middle part, and if you want to know what happens there, you'll just have to read it. Before there was writing, there were imprints of hands on the interiors of cave walls. An originary declaration of the self, set forward from despair with a smattering of similitude in the gathering storm. Above, stars can see everything. In the vacuum of the space between one and a distance as vast as a seed planted and forgotten, as a charity auction, as a low-impact exercise routine, as a built barricade, as a literary archive, as a non-metaphorical speed bump, as a road blocked by rubble, as a pun not intended, as a compliant architecture, as a systematic or systemic negation of the can't stop a body lost, as a body in flux, the material, cyclical nature of time is infinity in being nothing. Something felt more distance when it was right next to me. Is this loneliness, an absent emptiness, a fullness removed? A rock is still until it is moved, much like I am, perhaps, a body in space folded in upon until I am. Perhaps if I am without a body that enclosed, perhaps without a body or piles of bodies once embodied, vacuous, now perhaps. Perhaps there's something there, perhaps there's nothing to it, perhaps shaking a tree for falling fruit or a body shaking is also a removal, perhaps. Perhaps a zero amounts to nothing, perhaps dead eyes, dead, vacant, as the got nothing up there, perhaps, and a flash, perhaps. It was all for naught, perhaps. Something appears to appear out of nowhere, where this and that are bound together in this forever othered of disparaging despair. To forget is to remember negatively. I have hands and a head, and they proceed in their own ways according to such and such a rule. A history is unbound to its location when forgetting is prioritized over the material. A tree is torn from the ground, paved over, and forgotten. Something is set on fire. Images are staged to distort reality. People forget and are forgotten. Moments proceed in their own way, as they always do. Channeling statistics is a technology of population and numbers. Everything must be accounted for. Everything must be bought and sold, owned, or exchanged. Thus, a feeling is perhaps induced, perhaps a sort of numerical sublime. A moment arrives as a happy accident in which systems create systems, divide to divide to divide, and people create systems. It's just a happy accident that systems divide, that the systems created by divide, and that the systems create people who divide. It's just a happy accident that I created a happy that nothing is accidental. In my formation, a sort of, I twist to unfurl and build the assumption that there are two sides. Upset with the balance of relations when people read the consequences of when one encounter projects onto another and a simple pillage becomes an ongoing present. And my skin, thinly veiling an abject vacuity, spills over into every aspect of every life. Thank you.
We're getting there. We're launching these books. We've got one more reader, then we're gonna take a break. If you've been staring to my right here and been looking at this table with all this interesting and/or intimidating-looking gear on it, let me assure you that, like the photos that were projected from Sophie's book, this is an important part of our next book, Chamber Sonic. Juana Avasilikoi interweaves poetry, sound, performance, photography, and translation to expand and trouble ideas of language, histories, polyphonic structures, and borders of listening. She's published 6 collections of poetry hybrids, including 8-track, published by Talonbooks in 2019, and finalist for the Governor General's Literary Award and A.M. Klein Prize for Poetry, and Liminal, published by Talonbooks in 2015. She's created many performance and sound works that mix electronics, ambient textures, noise, and vocal play. And she's written a libretto for a 1-act opera, Cells of Wind. She's also translated many books of poetry and prose from French and Romanian, including Martine Desjardins' Medusa, Catherine Lalonde's The Fairy Devouring, and Bertrand Laverdure's Readopolis. Based in Montreal with forays into New York, Avasilikoi frequently performs her work in Canada, the United States, and Europe. And I've got a little thing written, but before I jump into that, I wanted to read, there was a review on the Poetry Foundation that came out today, I think, or it came across my email from Katrina today. So I thought I'd read a sentence from that and then read the thing that I wrote, because I think this sentence from the review gives us an entry point. It's from a review by Janani Ambi Kapathy. Reading Chamber Sonic feels like walking through 2 kinds of interior spaces. One is a rehearsal or performance space where music is being composed and played. The other is the mind space of the artists reflecting on their practice. Chamber Sonic is a book about sound, about making it and listening to it. It imagines the book as a kind of sonic chamber, where, as readers, we're asked to sit in the midst of a series of soundscapes and reflections on the making of sound. Juana expands on the work of her, Juana expands on the work of her previous book, 8-Track, but when we went for drinks earlier, Steve was asking Juana, when did this start? And Juana said, We Beasts, the earlier book. So let me revise myself on the fly and say this expands on a thread in her work that starts with Wee Beasts, or when she bought her first pedal, or when I remember when she was in Calgary as writer-in-residence and she showed up with a theremin. So this is a long-standing thing. So when you pick up Chamber Sonic, and I'd encourage you to physically pick it up, at the book table later when you intend to buy it. I encourage you to physically pick it up because you might not quite get the book until you see it and hold it and listen to it as we're about to do. You'll notice that the book is filled with scores, essays, short plays, photographs, QR codes linking to videos and recorded performances, and sometimes even poems. Chamber Sonic works with an expansive poetic tool set and is a buffet-style carnival ride that formally explodes its binding, figuratively and literally. It is a noisy book. Please welcome Juana Avasilikoi.
My prop was upside down. I had to write it up. Thank you so much for that introduction and for the noise. And thank you all for being here, and a very special thank you to Talon for making this happen. I'm very excited to share this with you. As Ryan mentioned, the book is many things, and so I'm going to share one of the sound works in the book that's called Electro Echoes, that's based on a text that is in the book as words as well. Some voices will blur, congregate and frolic, unravel the lineages of lexicon and grammar. Some voices will shift the tone of the hour from frequency to oscillation. Others will be placed on the fires of history to burn and burn and burn, but they will not burn out. Some voices will cry out, not just in pain, of which they will ricochet, but also in wonder. Some will volatile, ricochet, they will periphery, then amass and ricochet to center. Others will speak in code, or what appears as code. They will be the ones least understood, but also the ones most worth trying to decipher. Some voices will draw blood from bodies, from foliage, from structure, from avatars of nation states. Others will sense bicker over boundaries of ethics in our conflict. Others will vestige book, background noise in a recording, a rumor, a legend, a memory. Some, however, will leave no trace.
And with that, we're gonna take a break. 'Cause you follow that with a break, right? So during this break, how long do you think the break should be, Kevin? 15 minutes? Which means it might be a little longer, but when Kevin flashed the lights, you better get in here. During that 15 minutes, there's a lot of things you could do. You could go get yourself a drink. You could get a bun or a snack. You could use the facilities. You could buy a book maybe. And I'm sure the authors would be pleased to sign the book if that's something you're into. Let's take 15 minutes. See you, and I'll see you when we come back. You don't have to clap for me.
bug you if I put my water there? Like, it's not gonna be in your way or anything like that? Okay.
I think I'm gonna pull the mic this way when I do mine.
Okay, I just don't want it to be in the
I don't
way.
want to feel like I'm bending over to the back and fuck that.
Oh, is that why you were, I wasn't sure if that's why you were standing or if you were just feeling like.
I'm wondering if I should wait for Kevin. Kevin took off. Oh, hi. You all figured out that it was time to come back. That's great. There are people in the balcony now. That's exciting. Don't have to clap for them, but I hope you all had a great break. I hope you, as I said earlier, did all those things, including buying books. As I am obliged to remind you to do between every reader, because I'm hosting this reading for my employer. I thought, also the books are fucking great. Sorry about my language, but that wasn't a cue for you to clap, but I appreciated it. I was just told that my hosting style was giving Calgary, had big Calgary vibes, which I was trained as a host in Calgary in the filling station ecosystem a million years ago. So that's where that comes from. We got 2 more readers and 2 more books to celebrate and launch and for you to maybe purchase. Our next reader is Stephen Collis. Steve, your bio is extremely long, so I might cut it on the fly. We'll see how I feel. Stephen Collis is the author of 7 books of poetry, including the Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize winning On the Material. Most of these are published by Talonbooks in 2010. Other titles include An Archive, published by New Star in 2005. The Commons, Talonbooks in 2008 and 2014. To the Barricades in 2013. Decomp, co-authored with Jordan Scott. If you're interested in conversations with the Kagawong, actually, you might want to check out Decomp. Published by Coach House Books in Toronto in 2013. Once in Blockadia, published by Talonbooks in 2016. And A History of the Theories of Rain, published by Talonbooks in 2021. An activist and social critic, his writing on the Occupy movement is collected in Dispatches from the Occupation. Collis is also the author of 2 book-length studies, Phyllis Webb and the Common Good, and Through Words of Others, Susan Howe and Anarcho-Scholasticism, as well as the editor with Graham Lyons of Reading, Duncan Reading, Robert Duncan, and the Poetics of Derivation. I'm just barreling through. His memoir, Almost Islands, Phyllis Webb and the Pursuit of the Unwritten, was published by Talonbooks in 2018. He teaches at SFU. The Middle, which Steve is going to comically come up and turn back over because it's upside down, I think, right now. The Middle is about grappling with the spatial and textual complexities of a present that seems to be a long series of connected crises. The Middle collects 3 connected long poems that continue Steve's long-term poetic project that may or may not be called the Barricades Project. The Middle is the middle installment of a trilogy that started with a history of the theories of rain, and that might conclude with a 3rd book tentatively titled Terminalia, though we'll see. Maybe Steve will want to remain in the middle of things and thinking, even though everything around us feels so terminal. To work from the middle is to take a position to time where the past and the future are here in the room with us. And then I've got a note in handwriting on the side that says, the time is coming from inside the house. The Middle follows Steve as he thinks through a world in motion, a world that's always been in motion, but that's been thrown into crisis. This book is filled with movements about movement through Paradiso and Purgatorio. It's peripatetic and contemplative as Steve wanders through texts and along trails, dwelling in the texts of Dante and William Blake and Robin Blazer, and hiking alongside the global movement of seeds and people. Please welcome Steve Collis.
I'm going to pull the mic out, that's all, because I'm having a back issue, and just the thought of leaning toward that mic makes my back hurt, so I'm going to stand out here. Thanks, Ryan. That was awesome. Thanks, Kevin and Katrina and everybody at Talon. Love working with you guys, always, always. Thanks to you all for being here tonight. That's lovely, and lots of great poetry friends to share this with. And all the other Talon authors launching books tonight, congratulations, and lovely to be here with you guys too. I think this is my 9th book of poetry, or we were talking about, maybe it's 8.5 because I did co-write one with someone else. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure this poetry thing out. So thanks for your patience on that front. This, as Ryan said, this is a long poem to me, but it falls into 3 very distinct parts. The last part is about trees and mobility and under current conditions in the world. The first part is kind of an apocalyptic poem written amidst the wildfires and atmospheric rivers of 2021. But the section I'd like to read from, if you will indulge, is the middle title section, called The Middle, which is a series of 33 short cantos sculpted out of Dante's Purgatory. And in Dante's Purgatory, the middle of the Divine Comedy is a part of that poem where everybody's in motion. Everybody's trying to get somewhere. It's called heaven. But they're all pilgrims on a journey. And rereading that, when I wrote this poem, I thought I could hear the echoes of refugees and asylum seekers, people I've been working with and getting to know in the last decade or so in the UK. So that's where this is really coming from. Do you know what limbo means? Abdul Razak Gurna. Little boat, ship of leaves, I'm yours in dead air of profound night. Words don't bind me. She who moves me moves and directs, light in search of freedom where the wave beats the sun just now rising without a word, turned back like one who found the lost road again upon the gentle grass that never has seen sail upon it. People emerging from their journey across the sea, just a moment as wings wanting no oar nor sail between eternal pinions. The meridian stretches, people pondering through thick vapor, a light across the sea. I didn't know what took shape as wings, neither sail or oar, more radiant, a vessel of such lightness, strangers flung on the beach, harsh, and I was not one of them. Always there with my body, coming to this country, all the others settled in a meadow, flew up at once, and fled the coast. Oh, clear and open land, broken, spacious body in which I cast a shadow to traverse the infinite. These people, let's go to them, still distant, light on the ground, and all the others following closely. This is a human body. Turn and look, surrendered and weeping, close beside the bridgehead, turned back at the end. Climbing, we saw folk approaching, no place for the sun's light to pass. Shadow rend the clear sky in the same limbs you were born in, blood enthralled within my heart. I was overtaken. I fell. I staggered, turned back to mist and wind, and the rain fell and the earth rushed to meet the river. Flushed along the hillside the rays of light. Make it plain at nightfall, poet, in those same limbs until the last hour cannot recognize. The footsteps that land on horizons, poured from a moment that brings cares, took you far away. A stream, one little tear that vapor gathers, turns into water with intellect stirred mists and great peaks. The rain fell, the gullies tearing its way. My frozen body, the long journey made then, unmade me. Said again, the fault was not something revealed. The ground saying only night's darkness will lead us to that place. Make our way serene, translucent, amber, the wounds where the water is born, where the indigo wood, the grass, and the fragrance of 1,000 scents, branches from kingdoms singing. Gleaming in the shape of animal and memory, captive to sorrowful song from far and less close to our thinking, wings outspread, terrible as lightning, but caught fire in that imagined blaze in her arms, and I became no color. That walls slept within you. Let me take this one up who lies asleep and set out on what seemed white marble, some rough stone, a singed, arid rock, porphyry, red flaming on the threshold, time opening and locking at once. Turning one side to the other, I would be put to shame, for many years had passed in the same way, caught up in gold, as a person eager for any new thing. I cannot untangle what is coming, unknot envision the sickness when we are, as it were, imperfect insects upon our backs. The green endures, wind comes and goes, my heart remains confined by bounds. Ourselves have suffered, ourselves burdens. What can be said, made clean and light? Move your wings, bear this weight brightly. When old, resound to the very edge of life. I went on like one who has to follow memory's creatures, crushed by the gigantic project, glum upon the shreds of cavernous ruin. Don't look down. With sail or oar, memory sculpts any creature looking bewildered in the road. The mountain sun's coarse time, clothed in white, said, "Come." With wings struck, I seemed much lighter, almost, I don't know what, this learning incised upon me. In front of us, the bare road, the center of motion, unless some other speaks, the earth would not have what they need, words, the only place I stitch them up, sure of seeing farther ahead. I mend my harm. I was mad. I believed I had free eyes and land to long for. as it turns the hinge of movement, some others spoke and went on out of hearing, as if each endured in their voice through the future any mind's true city. I call myself enemy of the state. I think the torment will not be long. Already we hear the earth returning. Journeying from, hide the name, I do not know, out from the ocean, from some valley like cattle, leaving so that 1,000 years fill with trouble, from the river to the sea, when I remember their names, full of weeds, the house and love and footsteps of the rest of your family never will be safe. Walk away. Say nothing. Draw closer to the earth. Silence gives comfort. Drawn by everything, love is born in movement, all nature in movement, understanding in the bee, such urgency is primal, a power in you kindled by a burnished path, the sun in flames, others cannot weep, remembering, body ran so swiftly ahead that in mind I rambled to and fro. Crooked life and cold limbs on the sea, eyes singing open circles, thought making earth's split mantle opens without looking. We outstretched are weeping mid-ocean. The earth herself cleaves the imagination, that creature without which there is no order. The vacant spaces that fill the world with animal poverty. Attention changes when we perceive humble life. Tell me if I finish the journey according to the feeling that drives us on our way, insatiable, sweet fury, the whole kingdom, a hidden line as long as daylight lasts. I seem alone. The distance shudders, so came close and stood beside her, like first hearers, desirous of sound, hurrying along the roadway. Come, approach a crowd, their faces withered to a crust. The people who could make them, who made them, could make this happen. Do not ask me to speak of excess, the tops of the green leaves. You exchange the world for future time, swift preparing sorrow. Not only I, but all these with me, through the deep night, climbing and turning around the slopes. Time sung and wept, silent and unknown, a husk. Who could believe the cause? Do not make me speak. A power is in that water. A measure we sense, moved. I thought I saw a future, quick moving around me, and I am shook. All these folk too, shook. Thank you.
We have one final reader, Mercedes Ng. Yeah, no introduction for Mercedes. She doesn't need one. No, I've got something. Mercedes Ng is a prairie-born poet of Chinese and settler descent living in Vancouver on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. She's the author of My White Mama, Prison Industrial Complex Explodes, winner of the 2018 Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize, and Mercenary English, all available through Talonbooks. Her writing has appeared in Hustling Verse, an anthology of sex workers' poetry, Jacket 2, the Asian American Literary Review, the Capilano Review, the Abolitionist, and Rally, Surveillance, and Méday. I'm mispronouncing that. Mercedes was recently the Ellen and Warren Tallman Writer-in-Residence and a Shadbolt Fellow at Simon Fraser University. She's an assistant professor at Emily Carr University of Art and Design, where she organizes the On Edge reading series. Now, I worked with Mercedes on the copy edit of this book, and before I go into my prepared remarks, I just wanted to say this book was an absolutely wild experience to copy edit. And it's a book where I feel like working on it, I learned a lot, not just about the police in Vancouver, but also about how you can perform a social poetics. So, Cop City Swagger mounts a media critique of the Vancouver Police Department and Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim. It's a snapshot of police malfeasance in Vancouver and elsewhere, capturing a moment in time. And I say that because it became clear as we were working on the book that the work of the book could continue because we kept seeing more and more news stories about the police that kept coming across news feeds, like mine and Katrina's and Mercedes. Cop City Swagger articulates the multifarious nature of policing, the way it swaggers through and shapes our neighborhoods, our schools, and our intimate relationships. When I was first reading through Cop City Swagger, I was struck by the way its expansive media montage left me grappling with the scope of policing, as Mercedes categorically moves the reader through news stories, press releases, and personal reflections. And as I had to reckon with Mercedes' sources, because I had to, as copy editor, I had to fact check all that stuff. And I had to find out what news articles is she drawn from. I felt like a detective at the corkboard, tracing the links between pieces of evidence with the fervor of a red-stringing conspiracist. Except the conspiracy that Mercedes tracks in Cop City Swagger is real and walking the streets. Mercedes asks, borrowing a quote from Christina Sharp, whether an account of care can have an analysis of power. In Cop City Swagger, she triangulates care and power with the fraught category of safety, asking who in our current structures is deemed deserving of care and safety, and maybe more importantly, what care and safety might look like in a world after policing. Please welcome Mercedes Inc.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Talon, thank you for publishing my writing. And thank you to the other readers who shared the stage with me today. This book was occasioned by Ken Sim's campaign promise to ensure public safety through the hiring of 100 new police officers. For some of us, we're very aware of the fact that the police are the threat, not the people we call when we're in trouble. This book is dedicated to Nicole Chan, Jared Onez, Chelsea Portman, Tatiana Harris, and Noel Osub, people who have been killed or harmed by the police. So I often find my work hard to excerpt because it has a lot of factual information. It works with a lot of news sources that sometimes I think work better on the page when the reader has time to put it all together. So I'm going to read what is more like straightforwardly the poetry. And you're going to hear about two folks, Muriel and Sue. So Muriel was an Indigenous poet and activist who left us in 2018. Sue Shengliang was a community Popo grandma known as Popo Sue. She left in 2018 as well. Oh, and also before I begin, can I just show off my bracelet? Tina made this bracelet for me to wear, which matches my earrings and book and outfit perfectly. So thank you so much, Tina. I really appreciate that. Muriel and Sue learn about Jared J. Lowndes from the Eagles. Jay was a Wet'suwet'en man killed by the police in 2021. The Eagles say the police deployed a service dog against him, and Jay killed the dog in self-defense. They read the press releases, local news, see the way that the dog's life is honored, and Jay is reduced to a male responsible for his own death instead of a person who was murdered by the police using excessive force to arrest him. They're hopeful upon hearing Jay's children and mother are suing BC's Minister of Public Safety and members of the RCMP. BC's Independent Investigations Office says it has submitted a report to the prosecution services for consideration of charges related to Jay's death, as there are reasonable grounds to believe that officers may have committed offenses in relation to various uses of force. Sue and Muriel can't imagine the anger and frustration Jay's family must feel when the IIO doesn't move forward with the charges against the men who killed their beloved. Sue and Muriel go to Campbell River to where Jay's life was taken. They honor Jay in the ways that they know how. They research police dogs, learn that the RCMP has been weaponizing dogs since 1935. According to the RCMP website, quote, since then, police dogs have proven themselves to be an invaluable asset to all sorts of investigations, unquote. Muriel and Sue learned that the VPD Canine Unit, formed in 1957, is the oldest municipal dog force in Canada and offers canine handler training to outside law enforcement. That the VPD has a canine training facility with spectator seating. That you can adopt a VPD service dog for $25. $48 if you want a VPD dog stuffy wearing a bulletproof vest. Muriel and Sue head south down the I-5 through California's Central Valley, where approximately 70% of America's produce is grown by rerouting water for irrigation, passing fields and fields and fields of olive trees. They can hear the olive trees crying for the soil of Palestine, for the caress of indigenous harvesters, for their kin being destroyed by Zionists. They are in a hurry, but still they pause, take a moment to honor the fruit they are in solidarity with, take a moment to honor the people they are in solidarity with, people whose lives and food security have been under attack since the Nakba. Sue and Muriel finally arrive, can see the lights of Los Angeles, but they are not here as tourists. They are here to liberate Spot, the Los Angeles Police Department's robot dog, a $278,000 donation from the Los Angeles Police Department Foundation, an independent not-for-profit organization, the largest source of private support for the LAPD. According to their website, they are, quote, passionately dedicated to ensuring that Los Angeles remains America's safest major city, and the funding we provide directly improves public safety, unquote. They are also passionately dedicated to ensuring the anonymity of their board and staff due to, quote, security concerns, unquote. Some LA City Council members also had security questions about how the quadruped unmanned ground vehicle could be deployed to surveil certain neighborhoods. Muriel and Sue know from their research that the VPD also has a police foundation. According to their website, they, quote, foster partnerships with the public to enhance the VPD's work, to engage with the community, and to meet its objective to make Vancouver the safest city in Canada, unquote. Sue and Muriel know well whose safety matters, whose safety doesn't. Safety does not look like 100 new cops, 100 new CAR 87 nurses. Safety does not look like a Ruru Remen finance bro mayor buddying up with a billionaire. Does not look like cops investigating themselves, cops opting for retirement, then joining the military, big trucks with thin blue line stickers gunning their motors, decamping the downtown east side. Safety does not look like calling security on aunties and popos practicing Tai Chi in Chinatown Plaza because they don't have a permit. Safety does not look like Indigenous mothers writing their children's names on their children's arms so that children can be identified if their limbs become separated from their bodies. Safety does not look like Indigenous mothers and families investigating their daughters' disappearances and murders because the police negligent investigations ascertained their daughters' deaths unsuspicious. Safety does not look like Gastown, Chinatown, Strathcona, Railtown residents who loved everything everywhere all at once but don't care about displacing aunties and popos who look like the protagonist. Safety does not look like protection of property over poor people. Does not look like corporate values of a fun city with swagger. Does not look like determining a teenage white boy's racist threats unthreatening. Safety does not look like cops at Memorial March, cops at Pride. Safety does not look like momentarily worn orange shirts over a VPD uniform for a photo op. Safety does not look like see something, say something. Safety does not look like a Vancouver branch of Bank of Montreal staff calling 911 on a grandfather for trying to open a bank account for his granddaughter using their government-issued Indian status cards. Safety does not look like the VPD handcuffing a grandfather, Maxwell Johnson of the Heiltsuk Nation, and his granddaughter for being Indigenous while trying to open a bank account. Safety does not look like wellness checks, compassion fatigue, inattentional blindness, feminisms that seek to punish, that seek to essentialize. Safety does not look like golf shirts and smaller guns. Safety does not look like deploying detective sniffer dogs in the recently rebranded Community Industry Response Group to protest calling for the end of the killing of children. Safety does not look like people at Crab Park drinking $8 coffee, saying unhoused people shouldn't have the pets that they have for companionship and safety, while the expensive coffee drinkers, purebred dogs piss on the grass that people want to sit. Safety does not look like weaponizing dogs. Safety does not look like the VPD tweeting a donation request for easily militarized Cybertrucks at the billionaire who bought a social media platform to stop the woke mind virus, unquote, from infecting the platform. Safety does not look like the fire marshals ordered to decamp the downtown east side over fire concerns. Does not look like a flame on the street. Does not look like failing to inform businesses located in a 100-year-old building that said building is on fire watch. Safety does not look like failing to inform residents living in a 100-year-old building that is on fire watch. Safety does not look like empty fire extinguishers at a 100-year-old building on fire watch. Safety does not look like cop-enforced injunctions to dismantle tent cities. Does not look like diverse hiring, cultural awareness training, blue walls of silence. Safety does not look like any team whose name begins with assertive. Safety does not look like being incarcerated under the Mental Health Care Act. Everybody doing okay? These words safety and care, they're so complex. Care looks like 100,000 new social housing units. Care looks like 1,000 new public washrooms. Care looks like catching people when they're trying to defy gravity. Looks like using the buddy system to and from a blockade that shut down the city's port, the biggest port in Canada, third largest port in North America. Care looks like providing fire extinguishers to unhoused people who use fire to keep warm and to cook food. Care looks like providing fire extinguishers to unhoused people. Oh, sorry. Care looks like food security and access to clean water. Care looks like masks for East Van. Care looks like OPS fans and naloxone training and safe supply. Care looks like looking away if a hungry person takes food that they didn't pay for. Care looks like fighting for social housing and affordable housing, fighting for an inclusive, equitable Chinatown. Care looks like a radical rethinking of rights that moves from individualism and charity to mutual aid and collectivity. Care looks like a living wage, free transit, feeding the hungry children of Vancouver who need food programs at their schools, not fucking cops. Care looks like shared risk. Looks like understanding fight, flight, freeze, fawn, trauma responses, peer-to-peer support, Vandu, wars. Care looks like your workmates grabbing extra bad date sheets, condoms, and lube in case you miss the van. Care looks like Tracy Morrison walking towards you, bannock in one hand, clean rigs in the other. Care looks like hundreds and thousands in the streets despite police surveillance and violence. Looks like care pods and chosen families, assistive devices like vibrating or flashing light, alert systems to warn deaf residents of a fire in their 100-year-old building on fire watch. Care looks like a 5-hour Palestinian poetry sit-in led by students, despite those students already being positioned as a threat to other students' safety. I'll just take this moment to note that someone at my university interviewed me about this book, and now the university is taking a little bit of an issue with some of the things that I say about the police in my book. Care looks like a fully funded Canada Disability Benefit. Looks like CRIPS for eSIMs for Gaza. Looks like a daughter and a father staging a model minority mutiny. Care looks like consent-based models of medical treatment. Care looks like defunding, disarming, dismantling, and then rebuilding the world from the ground up. Okay, last one, and then we can get the fuck out of here. Sue and Muriel and the dogs murmurate up the Pacific coastline, travel pattern learned from Starling Kim, deployed to avoid being tracked. Taking the inland freeway back is quicker, but they know how much the dogs need to play with each other. To play in the sand, breathe in the salted air, run without command, run with each other, piss on their own schedule, smell each other's butts, track no scent other than their own, their scent changing the further they get away from being weapons. The pack grows as Sue and Muriel move north. Spot the robot dog carries the dogs whose knees are damaged from the job. When they get to the Canadian-American border, the dogs run up, over, under, around, vehicles waiting to cross. A black and tan wave of fur, undulating liberation in every direction. The border cops observe but are too busy trying to gain control over their canine subordinates who are running to join the pack. Sue and Muriel and the dogs bust open the VPD canine training facility, free the dogs there, go to Winnipeg, to the only police force in Canada to have a robot dog so far, and they released this dog too. Taking up the VPD motto, Servamus, I can't speak Latin, I don't know. Servamus, we protect. The pack disperses themselves. Some form popo protection squads. Several congregate in the downtown east side and in Chinatown to keep unhoused and low-income people safe. The dogs keep 6 on the slows in Vancouver high schools. They keep the women who work with the police, who are sexually harassed by the police, safe from the police. They keep young Indigenous women and non-binary people who have been harmed by the police, safe from the police. They go anywhere and everywhere. People need to be kept safe from the police. Thank you.
So that's it. So thank you all for coming to the fall 2024 Talonbooks poetry launch. We launched 5 books: Conversations with the Kagawong River, No Signal, No Noise, Chamber Sonic, The Middle, and Cop City Swagger. Can we get another round of applause for our 5 readers? And I understand some of you are probably itching to leave. I'm going to ask Kevin, like, if people still wanted to buy a book, is that possible? Yeah. Okay, Kevin will sell you a book if you want. Or is there time for hanging out and visiting still? I think you got time for one last drink. That's from Kevin Williams himself. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Cecily. That's very nice of you. Thanks for coming. Buy books. Have one more drink. Yay, poetry.